the sigh. We're back.
We're
It's
back.
It's Thursday
back.
night. I've been in Detroit all week, and I had some fun with a lot of people that were drinking, and I had those moments. Aren't you going to have something? And even as polished as I am, and don't care, you still have that sense of unease when someone throws that question at you. But it was. I just said, oh, you know what? I quit a while ago and changed the subject, and it was dropped. But still, that I get mad at myself for having any discomfort when that question comes up, but it's still there.
I know.
So, hey, anyways, we had I ran the contest again of Peggy's new theme music, and we've gotten a lot of feedback. It was weird. It was a lot of people hit on the same song, and so the new, at least for this, I just said we want a song that really epitomizes Peggy, everything that she's about, and overwhelming,
Ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga,
it's just,
chaka, ooga,
it fits. Don't you just feel it?
ooga, chaka, ooga,
I see you.
It makes me run out and want to get that Lumi deodorant that's for your whole body.
That's what this song makes you want to do?
Yeah.
This is one of those. He had a good song, and how can we make it better? I know. Let's get a couple guys to start yelling "ooga shaka, ooga ooga ooga."
You sure that's the right words? Because I usually I just destroy words.
I'm the guy that the song "Easy" by the Commodores.
Mm-hmm.
I was singing it, and I said, "You see a big stone in a burrow," and someone said, "What are you singing?" I said, and I knew I was in trouble. I said, "You see a big stone in a burrow," and I knew I was in trouble. But that's what I've been singing since. He said the line is, "I begged, stole, I borrowed." I thought it was, I'm easy, but I was like a burro carrying a heavy load. You see a big stone in a burrow.
I see the relationship.
Thank you.
Unfortunately.
Thank you so little. You're wonderful. Okay, so I love this. You found our guest tonight because we hear so much from the people that are further along, and this guest is fresh in sobriety. I love it. And you can just, when you see the excitement and you hear it in the voice, it's so incredible. Yeah. So who is this? And
it's my friend Lisa, and I met her through Sober Sis, and I actually got to meet her in the flesh in Dallas, Texas, on a little about April 21st, I think, around there. And she's as cute as she looks on TV. So, and Lisa has such a good story. It was Recovery Elevator, right? That your first podcast. She's like a veteran podcaster now. So, and I thought, wow, we just don't, at least for me, and I know for me, seriously, is that when I hear a person fairly newly in sobriety, it solidifies my own. Like hearing other people's excitement or even other people's struggles with it, because it's not all pink clouds. So real excited to show you off tonight, and love to hear your story.
Lisa, how long have you been alcohol free?
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you, Peggy and Jeff, for having me. The answer is it'll be 6 months and 5 days in 5 days. So, as I was signing on to meet the two of you tonight, I was reminded that 6 months ago, I would have, at 9:00 at night, because I'm on Eastern time, I would have been in my bed with the covers over my glass of wine that I was hiding between my legs and that white cup. And I just never in a million years would think 6 months later I'd be here. So thank you for having me.
I had a huge red wine stain on one of my beds, and I just flipped it over. But
I used to do that. That's why I went white.
If I got into bed and
I didn't drink red. In fact, that was a wonderful lie I used to tell my husband, because if I said I don't drink red wine, which I didn't unless it was the only alcohol in the house.
Yeah.
If I made it into bed and had the covers over my head, which was basically a reverse mask, I thought maybe if I got to this position with the covers, they won't smell it on me. She won't smell it on me. So I figured I was safe if I made it. So that's where I was under the covers. Had nothing to do with temperature in the room. It was just trying to filter the permeation of 28 beers.
Well, the beauty is I could rewatch that movie or reread that same book, and it would have been like I was reading it for the first time because I didn't remember what I saw the night before. So that's such a sad comment, but that is a true statement. So,
well, how did it happen?
Well, do you want me to go back to kind of how this all started, like from my okay?
It's your time. Roll.
Okay, so really, when I think back to when it all started, my first drinks were, my mom was an alcoholic, lived in what appeared to be a very normal household. I had 3 sisters, mom, dad, dog, cat. We were all tennis players, active, and went to Catholic schools. So from the outside, everything looked really good. On the inside, it wasn't. My parents, I will say, they're 93 and almost 98 right now, divorced, but individually, they're really, really wonderful people. They are. And together, they were horrible. And it was a miserable marriage. My mom found her outlet through alcohol. So I grew up in an alcoholic household, and it was enormously stressful for me. I remember as a little girl, and this was just a memory that just came up in my mind today, looking through the vent in my bathroom, which was connected to her vent in her bedroom, so I could see where she was hiding her drinks. And then when she went downstairs, I'd go in the room and get the drink and throw it away. Yeah, I mean, a child shouldn't have to do that, right? So I remember, just not going to sleep at night because I didn't know where mom was. She had gone out, and I was worried she was going to be dead on the side of a road. And this progressed, and the way I took it out, my source of fixing myself at that time was food. So I became very heavy. And I went into my freshman year of high school very heavy. And I was just starting to experiment a little bit on the side with alcohol. I was never invited to parties because I wasn't in that group. Well, between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, starting in my late freshman year, I went on a diet, and it was a good diet, healthy diet. I lost 50 pounds. I went into my high school. Nobody knew me. Everybody, I was suddenly accepted into the popular group, invited to the proms and the winter dances. So we went to parties, and I was so uncomfortable in my own self. I didn't know who I was. I mean, I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence, but when I drank, we all know where that goes. I was the happy-go-lucky person, and it worked. And so that was my solution to handling my inability to just know how to deal with emotions, which were not, by the way, encouraged in my household. My dad didn't know he was a wonderful father, but with 4 daughters, PMS and everything else, he did not like emotion. So, we didn't show him. We didn't show anything. We kept it all in. So the alcohol in high school was my outlet. I went to college, joined a sorority. The drinking age was 18. I was the life of the party. I would drink to still, just feel comfortable in my own self. Just kind of fast forwarding ahead, when I got married, late 20s, and had kids, my husband is a drinker, but not a heavy drinker. He's one that can have his one and put it away. But he is a wine collector. So we do have, even now today, a 1,200 bottle wine cellar in our house. For somebody that's an alcoholic, that's probably not the best thing to have, but he has a lock on it. But he always would drink, nice wines. And so I was very tempered in my wine consumption for quite some time. Especially even when the kids were younger. By the way, I was in the corporate world too, which was a big part of it because it was conferences and sales meetings and, presidents clubs. And that was the party world. And I was in the computer software technology field. It was growing in leaps and bounds. People were pouring liquor down our throats in those days. So when at some point, my husband and I decided to get out of the corporate rat race, and we bought a franchise and we ran our own business. And I loved it. We were very, very successful at it, but it was extremely stressful. And that's when I started hiding the wine in my closet. Before then, I was not doing that. And at that time, from an age standpoint, I was probably in my early 40s. And when I was 49, I know the age exactly because I was leading up to my 50th birthday party. And I woke up one morning and my face was black and blue and my mouth was black and blue. And I went to an ER doctor. He asked if I had been drinking. The night before, I told him yes. And he said, you had a blackout. And I did not know what a blackout was. And he explained it to me. And he told me, to go to a counselor, which I did. And I was in AA for a year. I got sober for a year. But I never really worked the program. I was kind of the dry drunk that you hear about. And I just never ever connected with any of these people. And it was a year, and I think it was literally a year and a day or a year and 2 days where I really thought I've got this under control. And I started drinking, and we know how that goes down the slippery slope. And then, it just continued to get worse. My husband was aware, and he would bring things up to me occasionally, but not very often. And I thought I was getting away with it all these years. But when I was after 15 years of running our business, we retired. We sold our business. And I was still, that was 9 years ago. So I was still relatively young. I'm 65 now. And that was really hard. I lost my identity. I just had this emotional identity crisis, and the drinking got worse from there too. But on top of that, my mother, who had moved years before close to me, started having health issues and falling. So I'm her primary caretaker. So I had that stress. And it just got to be horrible. COVID was super bad. My mom's health went down even more. She's a very unhappy, kind of miserable, for lack of a better word, person. And I've been trying so hard to fix her and make her happy. And the more I tried, the more unhappy I was making myself. And now, as of a couple of years ago, the drinking got out of control. And it was I remember this, January of 2022, a friend of mine told me that she had read the The Naked Mind, Annie Grace's book, and that it was a game changer for her. So come March or so, I bought that book. I started reading, started signing on to podcasts. Peggy, that was when I found your Facebook page and started reading and following that. And then I was praying to God constantly. Where are you? Where are you? Because I would go to church and, hungover, but I'd go to church and pray. And I was getting really mad at him that he wasn't answering my prayers. And I was getting really scared too, because I could feel my health declining. I could feel I was losing myself. And I wasn't the person that I knew I was. I was living in a body that I didn't even recognize anymore. Mm-hmm. And I was getting tired of, finding new hiding places for my alcohol. There's only so many places you can hide it in a closet, right? From the boots to the robe pockets to God knows where else. I was very creative in that regard. I think I bought clothes with big pockets just for new hiding spots.
That's clever.
So that is, isn't it? Purses too. You got to watch, get big purses. So, God, it's so sad. But so I'm standing, it was November 13th. Oh, wait, let me back up. Leading up to this, I had been listening to Recovery Elevator, their podcast. I just binge listened for about 4 months. And as I'm listening to all these podcasts, I'm realizing there's some great stories out there, but not many from people that are in their mid 60s, from their 50s to their 70s. Just that whole age group was missing kind of for the most part. So I had written Paul, the podcast host, and I asked him if he was could point me to podcasts of older people, and I never heard back from him. And at about that time too, Peggy, from your link, and I thank Peggy because I attribute her to leading me to Sober Sis. I saw the Sober Sis and connected that way. November 16th, I'm standing in my closet and I'm literally pouring a glass of wine that I didn't want, asking God, what the heck heck am I doing? I don't want this wine. I'm pouring it and I'm going to go off and drink it. And I just was so lost. I was so confused. I was so scared. I was out. I felt like my body was possessed by a person I didn't even know. I mean, I guess the devil was right in there, helping feed this along. And I just prayed to God and I said, okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. And I had said that. I had prayed to him before, but I never, ever told him, I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes. And I'm not kidding. And I signed up for Sober Sis. I wrote Paul after 7 days of sobriety and said, I'll be that person on your podcast to represent the older group.
I love that.
Yeah. And when I did that, as I'm typing it, literally in my head, I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing, Lisa? What are you doing? I'm having this two-way conversation with myself. And I just had this peace. And I know it was God talking. And I just hit that send button. And it was just hours later, he responded and he said, let's do it. And I'm okay. And I could have backed out, but I didn't. I just was pushing along. I made this promise to myself and to God, and I was going to do whatever it took. I signed up for, as I said, the Sober Sis, and I wanted to start right then and there, but it wasn't December 1st yet. I remember writing Sober Sis and saying, can I get my money back? Because I want to start now. And I'll go off and do something else. And then, which is really stupid. That's how desperate I was to start.
No, we were lucky. When we did it, I started July 12th and you could go on right away.
Okay.
It's just gotten so much bigger. That was
which was fine because, I just, I started on the 21st. And let me back up too. When I was praying to God and when I had been praying to God for the past year or two, I knew inside what I was missing. There was no doubt in my mind. I was just like, if I could just have somebody who I could relate to. I have friends, but none of these friends know my big bad secret. And I would never tell them, and they could never relate to it anyway, because they're not big drinkers. If I just had connections. And I knew I couldn't get it through my AA group that I'd been to. They just were not my kind of people. And I hate that term, but they weren't. And I knew that's what I was missing. I had no clue, zero, when I signed up for Sober Sis. Two things: how strong those connections were going to be, number one. And number two, the focus on faith-based, which for me was spot on. That was what I needed. And it was just a godsend. It really was. And Peggy, I thank you, because if I got first on your Facebook page, that led me to it. Now, knowing Jen, I would have had she would have been showing up probably at some point anyway. She
magically appears on your Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it. And the first few weeks were just phenomenal. I did have that pink cloud. Some people, aren't sure what that is, but it was just, I was on cloud 9. Nothing could stop me. And I also, during this time, realized, even though my mom was my big stressor, and she was one of the reasons why I drank at night to de-stress, just one of the many reasons, I realized, at that point, I'm using excuses for everything. And I wasn't physically addicted. I was so psychologically addicted to alcohol, such a strong psychological addiction. But I think it was my will, my readiness to be vulnerable, and God and my community and my connections that have allowed me to stay sober.
When you I guess two parts. You were showing signs of the physical addiction, but you said when you guys retired, it kind of ramped up. You felt, did you lose your purpose or your?
When I retired, I lost my total identity. I did get into volunteer work, but that wasn't the same. People needed me. I was a performer. I was high energy. I produced, and then it was all taken away from me. And
my dad fought depression, and when he was a surgeon, and when he lost his career, when it ended, he lost his reason to strive, his where he was needed, where he was counted on, where he made an impact. And and retirement crushed him because he didn't have. And I'm just curious if that changed from a physical addiction to if that's where the mental, if it took a turn at that point or what. Because I just think people, maybe it's we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs and we don't have a purpose anymore. And I'm dabbling with the idea saying you gotta, but you said you volunteered. You gotta do something.
Yes. And that was great. I became a facilitator for child sexual abuse prevention. So I taught that for years. And then I volunteer through my church, and I'm a caseworker. I still am today. And I work in the food pantry. So that does help. And I exercise a lot. I'm big into that, and I read, but I was still missing that connection. I still didn't have a way to relieve my stresses and talk to people that understood my anxieties. But it did ramp up after retirement, and it scared the crap out of me, quite honestly.
How do you do it now?
Oh, that's a good question. Because that's all part of the learning process in what I've gone through. What do I do now? I am learning to try to sit with my feelings first and foremost, and really practicing the deep breathing. I'm really trying to focus on remembering and reminding myself these are not everlasting thoughts and feelings. They will blow over if I give it time to. I will reach out and connect with my sober cis friends. And by the way, I forgot to mention too, I built another whole community of sober or like-minded gals, because from the Recovery Elevator podcast that went out, and it was January 2nd of this year, Paul sent me a message saying it was one of the most downloaded podcasts he's ever had in his 8 years of doing this. And could he send me connections of people that want to connect? So I've connected with a bunch of gals. I'm having lunch with them tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. Yeah. And these are Recovery Elevator girls that just happen to live in Atlanta. I connect with about 3 or 4 others in other states. One of them contacted me today that was struggling, and she wants to reach back out. And so, I'm not in maybe the best position to help others, but all I could do is tell them what helped me. So that helps the connections.
Well, that was my question. I was going to put you on the spot, because there are a lot of people that, whether it's by giving up alcohol and that, or retiring, it's a big change. And I then you sit, we sit kind of empty. I lost my identity. I lost what I was doing. How do we get that back was the question.
Yeah.
Because there are people that don't know. They're feeling that emptiness.
And
this thing with Peggy gives me that purpose and that, that sense. I mean, I do this for me more than anything. I don't do it for Peggy. I'll tell you that much. But anyway.
Poor Peggy.
I was going to say you were one of my triggers.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
No, what would you suggest to people that are feeling that now, what in their life?
That are just retiring? I would say, first of all, before they decide to retire, have a plan. There's one of the girls that was in my 21-day reset. She did, or maybe she was in AFL, and she's not in the Quest program now, Peggy, but she was just telling us yesterday in our still group of Marco Polos that she and her husband, knowing they're going to retire in 2 months, are actually seeing a counselor who specializes in helping people with the retirement, with bridging that retirement gap. So, I mean, if somebody wants to go that far, but definitely having a plan. I mean, if that's going to be critical. I didn't have a plan, and that was my mistake. I went from 100, I was a 24/7. I was a go type A. I worked so hard, and then I didn't have a plan. After I went on a little mini vacation for a couple of weeks, and I came back, and it's like, what's now? So
let me. I want to ask you though, what retiring from a job is one thing. What about how for people that are going to give up alcohol, which is their job, their career? Do you need a plan for that, or do you need to plan for life beyond?
Yeah.
On the other side of alcohol? No, well, you need to plan for that.
That's a good question. And I had given up alcohol so many times, and it didn't work because I didn't have that plan. So yes, a plan. Without the plan, if you don't know if you don't know where you're going, how do you know how to get there? Well, it's the same thing. And for those that are struggling or not sure what to do or what direction to go, I would say first and foremost, try different things, because not one thing is perfect. And I would, try different things and then weed out those that aren't the right ones. Like I went right back to AA back in November 17th, went right back to those meetings. And I tried and I tried. And I had to give it up. It just, because I wasn't connecting. And then I did another AA, found a sponsor through my Peloton. I ride the Peloton, they have a sober group. And I did find a sponsor there, and she got me going, but it wasn't what I needed. I needed more daily, regular connections with people, even in my age bracket. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have that plan, and it could be different things for different people, or I think it personally just needs to be a potpourri of a lot of things, from the readings to the podcasts, to the connections. And then also for me, and this is just for me, I had to be vulnerable. I decided from the very get-go that I had to be vulnerable. I was so outside my comfort zone, and I was so uncomfortable being uncomfortable, but I knew that if I didn't take those steps, I wasn't going to get to where I needed to be, because nothing I had done before worked. So I'm willing to try anything. And if that means going on Paul's podcast, being here today, speaking on the Marco Polos, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it, because without that vulnerability, I just felt I wasn't being true to myself. And I'm being vulnerable with level 1 empathy, people that know the feelings, that understand. And so there's no judgment. There really isn't. I mean, I've had nobody in all of my times that I've put myself out there, I've never been burnt by it. All I've done is grow and get stronger. So for those that are starting on this journey, it's scary. It's scary being vulnerable. But trust me, you'll get through it, and you're going to come through it stronger. It's just how it works. Every time, and I still have a ways to go. I mean, I know at 1 year, I've told myself I'm going to put something on my Facebook page and tell my story, because maybe I can help somebody else who is afraid as well. But just even people new to it, I've been able to have impact just in the little things that I've done, or so I've been told. And knowing that helps me build strength.
You can't go back, right? You write a book or you go on a podcast and you're like, shit, now I can't go back, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's part of my plan. I knew that I couldn't do it on my own, because I might have gone back into sneaking around again. So the more people that knew from me, the more safe I was. And now,
Gary,
I'll be damned if I break my record, right? I'm at 1386, something like that. And the thing is, I was just walking. I walked today, and I was walking back, and I was listening to a meeting, and I went, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to go start at day 1 again. Just listening to other people go, oh my God, it's day 1 again.
Yeah.
Solidifies me to never have another day 1. I don't want another day 1. I like who I am. I hated the person I was.
I couldn't have another day 1, or I think I would die. I really do. And Jeff, kind of going back to your question on at the very beginning, challenges. I am right now going through a lot of challenges health-wise.
Right.
And Peggy knows this, but I just hit a brick wall. I have been going so strong, feeling so good, remembering to do my morning Bible studies that I do with a group of gals. That has been so helpful, keeping my morning routine so important. And I got outside of that norm. And when that started happening, then I started not connecting as much. And I could see this really slippery slide going quite fast. And then this week, or last Friday, I got a diagnosis that I've got to have eye surgery, or I could potentially lose my eyesight in one eye. So that's coming up this Thursday. And when he told me I needed to be on my face 23 hours of 24 hours a day for a week starting next Thursday, seriously, imagine laying on your face 23 hours.
Jeff has to be like a massage table where you can look down.
I have a massage chair being delivered, and then I have to lie on my bed horizontally with my head over the bed.
Yeah, watch TV through a mirror upside down.
How do you do that? Oh, well, you could do it on your massage chair, right?
There's a thing that I put under the mattress that I'll rest my head down on. Of course, last night as I'm sleeping, I'm thinking, well, how about my sinuses with my head's down that much? I'm not going to be able to breathe. I'm going to die anyway because I'm going to suffocate. So what's the purpose? Oh, there, I just lost you. So anyway, but going back to my
when you have the trips, because I think I got into the mindset, hey, I'm not drinking. Everything's going to start going great for me. And here comes, and then things that trip me up, whether it was, if it's a health thing or in a relationship, or wait a minute, I'm doing this right. And it's still not, life's not working. That can, well, then screw it. I'll go back.
You're so right. I mean, and that did not even cross my mind for a nanosecond, because number one, that's how determined I am that that's not going to happen, because I don't have another one in me. I just don't. Mm-hmm. And number two, being of strong faith, I don't want that. I couldn't do that to God. He gave me this body, this temple. I've got to take care of it from this point forward. I've abused it for so many years. I can't move forward abusing it anymore. Thirdly, I can't do that to my family. And I just can't. And so what I did, number one, in my slippery slope this past week, I reached out and connected not right away. Right away would have been day one. I reconnected day 3, and I didn't want to, and I made myself. And that was all I needed. I was like, okay.
I love what you said, because the accountability, I have no problem lying to myself, and I have no problem with disappointing myself. But if I tell someone else, whether I tell God, whether I tell you, whether I tell a friend or whatever, that's going to hold me accountable. And that is, if I tell, as close as I am to Peggy, if I tell her something, I don't mind failing myself. I don't want to let her down. And that's enough. Yeah. That might be enough to no, God dang it, I don't want to listen to her chew me out. And that might be enough. I don't mind failing myself, but that's critical for me. Yeah. Accountability.
The accountability is so key. And just, especially like in the Sober Sis group, just the feedback and the love that, we get from one another too is just an added level of support that you don't want to disappoint any of them either. And, most importantly though, you guys, I don't want to disappoint myself. I just can't. I finally have climbed out of that old Lisa that I just was hating for so long. And I just don't want to go back in. I know how horrible it is. It's easy to forget. I'm sure 6 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years out. But, the old adage, play the tape forward. I mean, I think that works for almost anybody at any point. And if you can remember those worst of the worst days. And my worst of the worst was when I was telling myself, no, it wasn't the worst of the worst, but pouring that glass of wine, knowing I didn't want it, and asking myself why I'm doing this when it tastes like shit. Of course, when you're only spending $2 I was on the 2 for $10 bottle. That's what my maximum budget was, $5 for a bottle toward the end. So you can imagine how horrible that tasted.
That's my kind of date.
Yeah, it was a cheap date. Well, and then I would, go to the other Kroger because they had the 2 for $10 Behringer too. But, if I'd gone a few days in a row and I had to go to Publix, well, okay, I'd splurge for the $6.95 Yellowtail. But, that was about my max.
I had my first experience with Publix, the first Christmas that I was sober. A Sober Sis offered. It was horrible, but she let us stay at her place in Vero Beach for 2 weeks. Somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I've never been in a Publix before, so that was interesting.
What was the biggest hurdle you didn't expect, and the biggest gift or
Those are good questions.
Yeah, those are good questions. The biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle, and I remember this very well. I was at my dad's in March, and I had to go out there for his eye surgery. He had a retina that detached. So I was out there caring for him, and he has dementia. He's pretty far down with his dementia, which, so when I got out there and he couldn't see, he was, and I was only 4 months into sobriety, I guess, whatever. But he was yelling at me because he could see before I got there. And now that I'm there, he can't see anymore. Well, he had just had his eye surgery. He had a patch on his eye, and he blamed me, and he was yelling at me for making him blind, which was really funny, you guys. I mean, it is funny. It's sad. But I was so stressed, and I'm sitting in that chair in his house and talk about feelings. That was the first time the feelings just kind of came down, and I was lost. I didn't know what to do with myself. It was night, and it was too late on the East Coast because I was on the West Coast to reach out to the sober cis gals who I knew to normally reach out to that are mostly on the East Coast. And I just had to remember what I was told. Let it go. Feel those feels. Watch the clouds go because they're going to blow over. And that was, I'm not saying it's been an easy journey because it hasn't, but the toughest part has been just feeling the feels because I numbed them since I was 15 years old. I numbed every feeling, the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between. And having to learn how to feel has been a challenging thing, and not how to feel, but what to do with those feelings.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, like when you grow up in an alcoholic home, you don't even know what your feelings are. You can't even name them.
No, because I numbed them. Everything was numbed. They were numbed. I didn't know how to feel at the youngest age. I never learned.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you don't. And when the thing, you have a mom that you don't know what mom is going to be there when you walk in the door home from school. And I never, I didn't know if I was going to have the nice mom or the Godzilla mom. And so, I lived a very eggshell life. I mean, I feel like I had eggshells taped on the bottom of my flip-flops.
Oh, always.
And that's carried with me all the way through until I actually, and I didn't drink until I was in my 50s, really. I didn't have a problem until then. But having said that, I had no idea what these feelings were. I tried to numb every feeling I
had. And I got pretty darn good at it because I was up to 2 bottles of wine, and the best part, Jeff, is without a doubt, the freedom that I feel.
It's so freeing.
It is. And, not having to get those clinky bottles out of my closet every day and drive by the gas station and put them into the bucket there, or, and I couldn't put them in our own trash can because we're empty nesters now. So that would make way too much noise in that trash can. So
an empty dumpster at 6 a.m. is the loudest thing in the world.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go out that early, but but the freedom of not spending so much focus and time planning it, buying it, getting rid of it, drinking it, hiding it.
I still have 100 wine bags in my closet, trying to figure out what to do with them.
I love that story.
I bought a wine bag every time I bought wine. The wine bags were as expensive as the wine, if not more expensive.
The gift to give the illusion that she was the wine.
I'm like, I'm buying wine for my friend's birthday.
Oh, I would decline those wine bags because I didn't want the evidence. But what I do have are a bunch of, this one blows my mind. Yeah, I have so many bottle closers, like the cutesy ones people would give me as gifts with a little pineapple on the top.
I ceremoniously got rid of those. Why? I never used them.
I didn't either.
They never got used ever.
You don't open a bottle and not finish it, right?
No, there's no way.
Paul
Well, you
does.
are amazing.
Paul
I
does.
knew you would be. Any final questions, Jeffy?
No, I just it's an inspiration. Someone put that in the comments, and it's just I just like to people need to know that the struggle is real. The rewards are so worth it, but there's nothing wrong with hitting those moments. I think when I had a craving or a doubt, I thought, oh, I can't tell anyone because I'm doing it wrong. No one else seems to be having, they're all in this pink cloud, and I'm having days where I'm doing it wrong because I'm struggling. No, you're not. You're changing a habit that you lived or I lived for 30 years every day of my life.
Yep. And you've got to have a plan. You got to have backup.
Oh,
I
that
don't know
was
how you did it. I don't know how she did it because it's 9:45 back there, and I have 2 hours to go to bed for.
Well,
Jeff is
Hello.
calling me constantly because I'm always the one that's tired, and I'm on the West Coast. So,
but I do in my new effort to reach out for help because I'm horrible. I'm a great helper. I help people. I don't take it. Please keep me in your prayers for my surgery next week.
oh, you got it.
And then also for my knee replacement surgery in 4 weeks. So
You got my number. I hope so. I hope you stay in touch. So you are wonderful. I love you.
well, I'll be in touch all next week, I'm sure, because I'm going to be flat on my face with nothing else to do but listen to podcasts and
I'll send you pictures. You can look at Jeff's face.
You're so sweet,
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Lisa, so much for being here. Hang on. And we'll see y'all next week. Take care.
Bye, Jeffy.
See ya.